Oh, shoot. Oh, I know, it's not allowed to be tired.
I know, it feels like it's 10.
You know what?
It feels like it's 10.
I know it. It's dark outside. I can't.
Looks like we're ready. All right, thanks, Michelle. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Riverdale City Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. Want to acknowledge that we have all of the commissioners present, with the exception of the following being excused: Amy Spires and Colleen Henstra. We now will move to our public comment portion of our meeting, and would open that up for public comment from members of the community who would like to address issues with the city and with the Planning Commission. But seeing none, we will proceed next to our next item on the agenda, presentation and reports. Community development update. Mr. Cooper.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll just make mention of the few projects that are happening in town.
Thank you.
The Ken Garf project is working out. It actually is looking wonderful, as I mentioned in the work session. I think it'll be a great addition to the street, and they're roughing it. I mean, that place is a mess, and they've got cars everywhere, but they're going to be moving into that new building hopefully soon. They've got really nice service bays in the back that's going to add a lot of service capacity to that location. The showroom's going to be beautiful, and then they'll basically replicate that building to the west. So that'll be a great addition. The townhomes are finishing up their site work over behind R.C. Willey, and we'll start to see some vertical construction probably February, I would imagine. And then the John Paris is about down, which would pave the way for the Panera bread that's been approved. And then the Kia dealership is about done with their addition on the back. That's less visible unless you drive around, but it looks great. They've seamlessly incorporated that into the building. It looks wonderful. It's going to add some service capacity and some detailing capacity to them as well. So everything seems to be going okay. Oh, and then Coleman View Estates, they've got the first 4 houses foundation in the ground, and that'll be fun to watch those get built. And they're sizable. I was surprised. You know, you see things on a piece of paper for a long time, and then you see it get built, and it's always surprising to look at it in real life. So they'll be big homes, and they'll be nice.
Nice. That's good news to hear. Thank you. As far as item C2, we had upstairs in our work session annual conflict of interest disclosure forms handed out, and if we can get those completed after our meeting concludes tonight so that we can get those into Michelle, would be appreciated. Next would be our consent items, consideration for meeting minutes from November 26th, 2024 for both the work session and the regular meeting. Commissioners, any changes to the minutes?
I'd like to make it a motion to approve the meeting minutes from
Go ahead.
November 26th, 2024.
The work session and the regular meeting,
Yes.
and I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. That passes. Thank you. Next, our action items. Item 1, consideration of recommendation to the City Council for site plan amendment for Starbucks Coffee located at approximately 1140 West Riverdale Road as requested by Starbucks Coffee and Kimley Horn and Associates. Mr. Cooper, please.
Thank you. I'll spend a few minutes introducing the project. We also would like to welcome Ms. Joanna Graham with Kimley Horn. She's representing the firm that Starbucks has hired to put this all together. So all of the smart answers will come from her. So on your screens, which I'm hoping you're enjoying the new screens. Hopefully things are clearer and easier to read for you there. It's just a basic site plan amendment. I'll cover some of the details. It's at the existing building now that's owned by Merrill's Paint and Glass. Starbucks is that tenant at the end, of course, that's utilizing that drive-through. And really, these improvements are to make that drive-through more efficient and work better and get more people through the service. On this slide, you see the site plan. Obviously, all of this was in your packet, and hopefully you had a chance to scour the details of the site plan. But essentially, it's just removal of some of the existing conditions on that north side. There's an island there, and that'll get reworked, and some of the existing curbs and things will get reworked. Striping will go in its place. There's some new signage and some new paint on the parking lot to direct traffic. We think this will help with some of the congestion off of 1150 because of the signage and the ability to kind of come around and make that turn into the drive-through. There's additional mobile pickup stalls that are on the south side, so that'll also help. Those are new. So on this slide, you'll see the comparison of kind of some of the existing conditions versus the proposed conditions. You'll see that that island's going to get reworked. The canopy does stay in place that's currently there. Some of the landscaping that is in that island and adjacent to it, that'll get replaced with either concrete or gravel or adjacent landscaping, which is the case of that island up in the on the north side where the parking stall used to be. And again, just this idea of circulating traffic better. It is a tight site. There are some cross-access easement concerns that we had, so we really looked at two major considerations on this one, vehicular access and cross-access, because the access off of Riverdale Road, the one that's in the picture and on the site plan, is on the property itself, but as you know, going through that subdivision, the one just adjacent to it to the east is also heavily used. And so we wanted to make sure that cross-access was in place, and there's a long-standing cross-access easement agreement with the adjacent property that allows for not only vehicular traffic in the way that they're proposing, but also the changes that occur on the adjacent property, which is essentially some signage and that new landscape island on the north side. So again, we looked at those. We requested that we did get a signature from the adjacent property on the application. That's since been provided. So we appreciate that. That just acknowledges that even though the easement's in place, the adjacent property owner knows what's going on and is okay with that. So that's been satisfied. And so with that, we would recommend approval of the site plan as it's being proposed, and obviously that's subject to any final comments that might come out as we get through City Council and the permitting process. Your determination for action tonight, one of these three options would be acceptable. Recommend approval as presented, subject to any comments that we might have. Recommend approval with any modifications that you have seen or would like to see, and we can talk about those with Joanna, or deny the proposal, finding that it doesn't conform with the general plan and it doesn't conform with the city code. And if that's your recommendation, then please list those reasons. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, and we can invite Joanna up for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you. Joanna, could you please step forward, introduce yourself and city of residence, please?
Awesome. So hi, I'm Joanna Graham. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates, and I'm representing Starbucks for this project. And thank you, Brandon. You did a great job explaining everything. So we really are just trying to make this Starbucks more efficient. Right now, it's a pretty small drive-through area compared to a lot of other Starbucks. So this is going to allow, we have 12 cars that are going to fit through this drive-through now. So it really creates a more efficient and honestly safer layout to reduce any congestion that's happening in that parking lot.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Ms. Graham?
If I get my coffee quicker.
Yeah, that's the plan.
You get people ornery when they don't have their coffee first thing, don't you?
I know. We got to keep you guys happy, right?
I do have one question as far as the site, and I didn't pay attention to it, and it just occurred to me. Presently, and I know it's going to annoy some of the people who are parking back there, in that what used to be, I guess, Chase Bank had a teller window there.
Correct.
Will that teller window, will that be repurposed, or will that be removed, or is that still going to be existing in the building?
So that teller window is no longer going to exist in the building. You can see where we're proposing, the island that's right there is actually under the canopy window for the teller.
Right.
So that's now going to be used as the Starbucks drive-through.
Right, right. But the window itself will be bricked over, or
I can look at what we're going to be doing architecturally with that aspect of it.
because it would just seem odd and out of place
Yeah.
to have that mechanics adjacent or in tandem with a Starbucks drive-through.
Yeah.
It would just be nice to make sure that that is appropriately addressed so that it's, you know, it looks nice and that it isn't an afterthought.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can bring that up to the architectural team to make sure we propose an improvement that makes sense in that area. I know we will be putting some pre-order board signage along the back wall there, so I can see how that plays into
Okay.
the signage and then making sure that looks presentable.
Is it that little business? It used to be kind of an insurance business or something in that.
But there was an Allstate there.
The Allstate, so it's no longer going to be there.
There's a couple access doors that are going to remain in that area, that are on the northwest side of the building. So those access doors are going to remain, but I know that the teller window is no longer in use as a teller window. But we are maintaining the access to those buildings, and we're actually improving the accessible route from the westernmost parking stalls to get to those windows.
See, we're not kicking the insurance companies out. They're still going to have businesses there.
Correct. They still have businesses, and like I said, we're actually improving their ADA access to their building. So that's something we took into account, is making sure those existing doors and facilities still have ADA access. We have a crosswalk striped for them.
But you can see there the hatched crossing there from the building to the parking lot. So that will be an addition which doesn't exist now. And there's a ramp cut there as well as another ramp cut over by the ADA stall on the south side.
I want to make it sure. So when we come down 1150 and they make a right-hand turn, they have to go down and around an island and into, right?
Correct. So we're going to try to direct traffic with our striping and our signage. Traffic is going to be directed around the building. But I will say we've run truck routes on it, and you know how it goes. People are going to do what they do, right? So we have run vehicle routes, and they can make a U in that area because you can see the building actually has a natural existing cutout kind of in that area. So you would be able to make a U and go through the drive-through that way, but we're going to sign them to go around the building.
So in other words, you'll be able to have more people lined up for their coffee rather than lining up on 1150.
Exactly. That's part of the reason why we want to bring them around the building, right? Is because we have 12 stalls that'll fit within our actual drive-through, but if there is additional queuing that goes beyond those 12 stalls, it's going to be maintained within that drive access, not on 1150 or Riverdale Road.
So there's still only one window, though, that they receive their coffee.
Correct. Yep. Still only one window, but the way that this is set up, it's a lot more efficient for Starbucks. So pretty much they do all this analysis on like what's the best car point to have an order point that then gets them enough time to make their drinks and get out as efficiently as possible. So now with the extra drive-through lanes, we're able to provide the most efficient time. I think it's like the 8th stall is Starbucks efficiency.
It looks like you're,
Get through quicker.
looks like you're still, if they had to move out, somebody pulled out, it's still got room without going on to 1150. You have plenty of room if somebody's queued up in the line and they want to move.
Exactly.
It's not going to be an issue.
Exactly. That was one of our biggest concerns, right, is to make sure we're keeping drive-through traffic on the site.
So they still come around the building and exit onto 1150. Is this correct?
They could exit on either side, I guess. If they were exiting on 1150, yep, you would wrap around the building there to get out to 1150 from the drive-through. But you could also exit on Riverdale Road. You can't see it in this snip exactly, but there's an entrance point a little bit to the east on Riverdale.
So where does most of them exit right now? Don't most of them exit onto 11 on Riverdale Road?
That's a good point. I don't know where most of the traffic is exiting right now. You would still be able to access both exit points, though, of the building.
Yeah, those items haven't changed. They're striped better in terms of making that route up and around. But it's safe to assume, I think, that as people have exited the drive-through currently, they're just coming out of the parking lot either in this first exit onto Riverdale Road or the one further to the east. They're not whipping around right there and going back to 1150. You could be getting people traversing the rest of the building back to 1150, but that's
That
not
would
changing.
really make a bottleneck going back, clear around the building and back out to 1150. That's really a bottleneck. That would be.
Well, and I think that's a good point, right? Is our exit point from the Starbucks remains exactly as it is today. The pickup window is in the same location. We're not changing the exit from the drive-through. So the exit exists in the same condition. We're just trying to move them through the whole process faster.
They can come out right here,
Right there.
or they can go forward and there's another exit right over
I was
here.
just worried they were going to go all the way around the building and back out.
It's not likely.
This,
Yeah.
But they can do that now.
Oh, yeah, they can do that very much so. I mean, I just live a half a block from
Yeah.
there, so I know.
You're
I
familiar.
know exactly what's going on
Yeah.
there.
Same here.
Yeah.
And when you said people are going to do what they want to do, I just had to smile because I know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
Because I've been to Starbucks before, and people are going to converge and merge and say, "Okay, let me in," and somebody's going to pull off 1150 and say, "Let me in," instead of going to the back of the line.
So that's why
And-
we really
and
do
that's just how
sign and
people
stripe
are.
it. But I will say too, with our proposed site plan, our order point is actually just south of the island. So if someone comes from an 1150, they don't have an opportunity to jump into line because of that, which is a good thing. We want to teach traffic to enter at the right point and not try to cut into a drive-through line. So the order point is the 8th car, which is, it's the very edge of the building, the edge of the top of the building.
So they won't be.
So they'll learn quickly if they try.
They
will.
They can't order.
They can't order from
They
there.
can't order there.
Brilliant.
Got to
Correct.
start back here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a major concern we discussed in our pre-application meeting. In fact, one of the iterations included that striped area right there at the curve. That was an extension of the concrete median to prevent people from jumping in. But because that created a pinch point, and because you really can't do anything, even if you did that because you passed the order board, it really didn't make sense to keep it concrete, which is why it's striped. And so that now helps with the emergency vehicles and the trash pickup there, not having a mountable curb to deal with.
Perfect.
Good. We will watch it.
I hope that it helps with your traffic. So, and hopefully you get coffee quicker. We all need that in the morning.
I know we got a lot of growth coming up in the city up there above on the hill too, and that's going to bring more traffic. And I think it's a legitimate questions. That's why we ask these questions.
Yeah.
Is how's that flow once above Tesla and all that group up there, starts filtering down into Riverdale. It's all a big picture of how does things flow smoothly is why a big concern.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you
That's
can
why
have-
we're all here, right? To
Yeah.
think of everything.
Can you see? I mean, I've often thought, because we watch this all the time, rather than people coming down at 1150, them to go clear to the end of the building and come in off 1150. I mean, I don't know. It would be going into home,
At home.
At home.
home, coming down there and then hit that area there, right there. That would, to me, it's just more logical for them to do it that way. Because this way they have to go all the way around the end. This way they just come clear, just straight.
I almost think that people will catch on to that.
Yeah,
The more that they use that they'll go north to the north side of At Home,
Yes.
sweep in front of At Home, and then pull in.
Yeah.
Just to avoid the
The
bottleneck
U-turn and
bottlenecks and
Yep.
U-turns.
right there.
Yeah.
because Lazy Boy's always got a truck there that's offloading of a morning, and so it's gonna.
That
Compete.
bottleneck's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would hope that people would look at that really close and think, I want to go down this other way. It would help the 1150 lots.
So not very clear in the picture, but if you look to the far right of that site plan, there's a number 12 there pointing to something. That's actually some additional signage. So that's going to catch the people coming in that eastern entrance, and they'll see that there is a route for them to take to get to the Starbucks, even way over there.
That's the best route.
Yeah.
If I was coming down, hopefully they do. Those people that come all the time will catch on, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think you'll go through it a few times, then hopefully figure out
Yep.
the best path.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any more questions for Ms. Graham? If not, then a motion would be in order.
I make a recommendation, a motion in order for consideration of recommendations of the City Council for site plan amendments for Starbucks Coffee located at approximately 1140 West Riverdale Road as requested by Starbucks Coffee and Kimberly Horn and Associates.
Is that a favorable recommendation for
Favorable
approval?
recommendation. Yes, Chairman.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion before we vote?
I would just like to add that seems very well thought out, and I think this will be a great improvement to the area.
Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
We want to add to the motion the proviso that all city staff concerns be addressed.
Sure, yeah, if that makes you feel good.
I'm okay with that because that was
to the-
looked at it. It was all
resolved.
It was all resolved in the paperwork is what I was looking at.
Yeah, it's just we put that in as a catch-all if there's any additional things that might come up as we get through the final permitting process. But we don't, other than your comment of the drive-through window that's associated with the old bank, there's no unresolved comments from the city.
Okay. Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please? Yes.
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 Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
luck.
Appreciate
you.
it.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, our next item for action tonight is item 2, consideration of recommendation to City Council for site plan for AFCU Corporate Campus Phase 1, located at approximately 4850 South, 1500 West, as requested by AFCU and AWA Engineering. Mr. Cooper, please.
Thank you. We have a slide deck for this as well. While we're getting that up, we'll welcome Jake Tate with AWA Engineers and Tim Sneidman with AFCU. So thanks for being here tonight. You'll see and have seen plenty of them, so we appreciate their time. As mentioned, this is now finally the site plan for Phase 1. You've heard a number of things on this project, which are all have been great. The street vacation, the subdivision, the site plan approval for the ops building, which is currently in operation, 1500 West construction, which is ongoing and making progress. There's been talk of signage, and then most recently the hillside site plan. So now we're talking about the site plan for the construction of Phase 1. Here's an aerial picture so you can see the existing conditions. We're talking about all that vacant land south and west of the existing administrative building that curved building, I guess you would call it. This is a picture of kind of the overall development plan that is going to happen over a number of years and over a number of phases. And so you can see in the blue box there where phase 1 generally sits. But this is maybe a little bit better of a picture. So now you're looking northwest on this plan, and it contemplates a number of phases, but 10 office buildings, a bunch of parking structures, and then some associated retail and commercial in the pinkish salmon color. So in terms of the site plan, we're talking about a 34.5 acre site roughly, as I mentioned. It's a wonderfully designed site. It's got a significant amount of landscaped area, both some temporary and some permanent, and we can talk about that. A tremendous amount of open space. The parking has met our ordinance and exceeded the ordinance. Most of the parking stalls are in a parking structure, which is wonderful to see. One of the problems that we have as we grow is having our valuable land used for parking, which is what we see up and down Riverdale Road. So they've elected to structure most of those stalls, and that will make for efficient use of the site and provide their customers and employees a protected place to park their cars. So I think that's an added benefit. There is 2 buildings being proposed right now on this site, parking structure, which is currently in for building permit review, and then building A, which is that building labeled office building. Those are the 2 first buildings as far as phase 1 is concerned, and then the associated site work, which is what you see in the picture, where all of the what looks like just a spaghetti bowl of lines. Those are trails and paths and all kinds of amenities for the employees that will ultimately create this interior plaza concept, and that's probably a better view there. This interior plaza concept, as the buildings line each side of that promenade, I guess you would call it, and that gives an environment that's very walkable, very pedestrian. The scale is right, and it just creates a wonderful campus environment. So you'll be seeing that as part of this site plan approval in terms of getting a lot of that constructed. I did mention that some of it is temporary because there are new buildings being proposed and anticipated. So some of the work that would be associated with this site plan will actually be temporary and get replaced when new buildings happen over time. And I'll let Jake and Tim speak more to that. So again, here's some of the renderings that they've provided for us. A lot of open space and trails and walkability there. And then as the site develops, you'll see more buildings come online. Here's another view kind of northwest of what those first 5 buildings in that initial phase look like. The lower flatter buildings there are the parking structures that will park the employees in all of those buildings. So here's another view looking south through that promenade plaza area. Wonderfully designed, accessible, high amenities, great detail, and just an amazing amount of landscaping and attention to putting back some of the stuff that has inevitably been taken from the site in terms of green space and foliage and those kind of things. So some of the considerations we looked at were obviously the utilities, stormwater being a big one, the sewer, water, parking, and fire access. And that was the basis of our review. Essentially, as you look at the corrections report, most of the comments were associated with those items. We wanted to make sure that the site circulated well enough. If you go back here, you can see that there's a fire access that circulates around the whole property that gives emergency vehicles plenty of room to get to the buildings that they need to. That interior space is primarily meant for pedestrians, but I understand that it is built to accommodate vehicles in the case of an emergency, and so there'll be access all through the site, even though it looks like it's primarily built for just people walking. And so we've done a thorough review. We are satisfied that it meets both the general plan as well as all the Riverdale City Code. We recommend approval, subject to the long-term stormwater management agreement. It's just waiting on signatures. We have that already provided, and so the mayor will sign that tomorrow, actually, and then we'll give it back to them, and that'll be resolved. And so, with that, we would recommend that you recommend to the City Council approval for this site plan. And with that, Chair, I'll turn it back to you and let you speak to Jake and Tim.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tate, Mr. Schneiderman, if you'd come step forward. I run the risk of saying old friends, but because I don't want to infer any preferences by any means, but
Yep.
we appreciate you coming back, and so we're familiar with each other.
Yep, thanks. It's great to be back. Jake Tate, AWA, 2010 North Redwood Road in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Tim Sneidman with America First Credit Union here in Riverdale.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions?
The space is beautiful,
Thank you.
as always. We love the detail that you put into beautifying the area. It's appreciated as Riverdale residents. There were a few items from Public Works marked as follow-up. Do you know if any of those have been taken care of, or are we still waiting on the ones that are marked in our packet?
Those will be follow-up as the site develops because they're related to stormwater. So some of the comments from staff and some of the responses from Jake and his team refer to the temporary nature of some of the calculations and some of the actual stormwater facilities. And so that will change over time. So I just mark that as follow-up so that as we review future plans, we can make sure that that's still being addressed and that the original assumptions they hold their integrity throughout the whole development.
Yeah, so when we did calculations, they were based on the final condition. So assuming all 5 buildings, all 3 parking structures, and all the retail along 1500 are constructed. But to Brandon's point, if something changes and it becomes something else in 20 years, then we'd revisit it at that time and make sure that there's volume in the pond. But that pond's oversized by about 50,000 cubic feet. So there's plenty of stormwater there and capacity at least. And yeah, we tried to plan ahead, and the pond is actually quite a big amenity for that area. It's going to be an area where people can go and sit. There's concrete benches in there where you can go and eat your lunch, and it's a very kind of flat. The north and the west sides are very flat, so that you can just walk down in there and sit, almost have a picnic during lunch if you'd like, and it's a cool area.
We went for kind of a retention pond can be a little bit of an eyesore sometimes, so this one is actually meant to look more like a wetlands area while still serving the purpose that it's intended for.
We have the
We have a
boardwalk.
boardwalk that cuts across the middle of it that'll have a pavilion in the middle of it, so we can have events out there. We can bring back the foxes and the deer and the hawks and everything else that have lived there for so long as we put the landscaping foliage back.
As an engineer, it's fun to sit in some of these meetings with the architects and the landscape people who are talking about there's a shade structure that looks like clouds is what it's going to look like. It's amazing, and I'm just sitting there, straight lines, concrete, give me all this, but it's fun to hear them talk about what it's going to be, a piece of art in the middle of this pond, so it'll be really cool.
So Brandon, can I ask you on phase 1, is there any deviations on phase 1 if they start the process from what we know now? If they're going to make changes, would we be notified what those are, or we're going to go with it's not going to change?
You always should plan for hope for the best, plan for the worst. And so it really is a consideration of the materiality of the change. If it's something that staff feels like they can address during construction and the site work, then that's something that gets worked out with Sean and his team. And that's a constant thing with construction. There's always small tweaks here and there. But if it's material enough, for instance, a building has to be relocated in its orientation, or the landscape plan changes significantly because there were some assumptions that didn't turn out to be true, then those are things we would bring back to the commission and the council for a site plan update.
I don't want to be
Because-
the bearer of bad news, but you know, it's always the unforeseen, and then how big is that problem?
Well, I know that
You know?
very well.
But this is just addressing the one building and the parking structure. So each successive building, we're going to have to sit down and examine that and the layout and
So-
approve that.
So yeah, so tonight's action is for the entire site that would encompass all of phase one, which is all 5 buildings. But each individual building, depending on the nature of the work, we would probably decide that at the time of the application. I don't think we've fully vetted that out. If it's in the same location that you see here, and that's evident on the submission at the time, and there's only minor work around the building that doesn't affect any of the improvements that were approved under this site plan, then it might just be a building permit. But if it's something that significantly changes any pre-approved site plan or other work, then we'd bring that back.
So, so clarify then, tonight we are approving the entire site plan
That's right.
for phase one.
So essentially, this is the graphical version of what you're approving.
Right.
And that is the site plan right there.
Our project will do all of that work at this time. Yep.
Now, you, right now though, are planning only on building the one building and the parking structure, is that
As
correct?
part of this first phase, yes.
And you can see in this graphic that the rest of the area where the other buildings will eventually be is landscaped. Is that
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
plan.
wanted to make it so it's a finished look, so that it wasn't a big dirt field, and you can actually see the green rectangles are essentially the footprint of the next buildings that are to come. And even the north one there, that's actually like a 9-foot mound. Like it is a huge landscape feature that's going to be there for a few years until we get ready to go.
Sure.
Our intent is to stand there on Main Street and you really feel like you're enveloped.
Yeah, you
just
don't feel
in
like
that
you're in the
space,
middle
right?
of a construction area for the next 10 years.
that was my concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And the intent is to roll in right after we get building permit with this. We'll start design on building 2, which would be the first square right above parking garage 1 and the next parking garage over at the same time. So, you know, in a couple, 18 months to 24 months, we'll hopefully be back in here getting that permitted as well and getting ready to start building 2.
And Chair, if the commission feels differently than how I've explained it, if you want to see each new building, even as an informational item, not necessarily as a new approval, but you just want to see what the impacts of a new building might be to the site, then that's certainly something that you can request. That would be different than how I explained it, but we're happy to do whatever makes the commission comfortable.
Be happy to come back and give a presentation on that, for sure.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your landscaping? Are you incorporating like some desert-friendly, water-wise features?
So
Is
this
it mostly
entire
just
site,
grass?
as well landscaped as it is all water-wise plants and everything else.
The only place that I'd say there's sod is that the upper triangle of the detention pond where the interaction of the employees will be. Everything else is either native grasses that will be watered once or twice a month or gravel with plants. So
We came in our DRC meeting and showed some. We don't have that today, but I mean, it's a plethora of colors, right? But they're all water-wise.
yes, hundreds of trees and thousands of plants are going in with this.
Yeah.
And
But at the same time, being very water-wise and conscious.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Our ordinance requires that. It requires the use of a smart irrigation system as well as drip, and it limits the amount of turf that can be placed unless there's beneficial use. And so they've demonstrated that the location of the turf and the benefit that it has to the employees for an amenity justifies it being where it is and the size that it is.
Perfect. Thank you.
You can have same contractors throughout all the phases.
hopefully,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
that's
the-
our intent.
That's the intent. So we went through a pretty rigorous process to interview contractors, and we're using Leighton Construction, who's
Through the whole process.
Yeah, they did the ops building, they're doing the road, they'll do this first, and the intent is just to hopefully keep them on site for the next 10 years. So we can just keep building.
This is way. Do we have any idea how long it's going to take us to finish this project?
Well, it all depends on our growth, right? Because we're not going to build more buildings than we can use. But our intent is for those 5 buildings within the next 20 years.
Those 5 buildings for 20 years, and then after that, then you'll look.
The next 5.
Yeah. Yep. So it's about one every 3 to 5 years. We're hoping to have a building going up, which is about what it takes to design, get it ready, and then construct it. So
Is
It'll
there
feel
any movement
continuous.
with UDOT on coming into the facility? Any discussion with that? That's
Yes.
a lot of
Yes, sir.
employees
That-
coming in.
That's probably been the main thing we focused on over the last. I mean, it's
3
been
years.
3 to 5 years. We started meeting with the city 3 years ago about the interchange on Riverdale Road and I-15, and now that's on the UDOT's 5-year, 8-year plan. So that's going to be a full movement interchange, and then probably 2030 is when we're going to trigger a lot of the improvements to Riverdale Road and the surrounding infrastructure. That's when the capacity is met by the buildings we're going to be building, and then we have to start improving streets, roads, widening things, take the roundabouts up on 4400. We're going to put signalized intersections up there. They're widening the bridge over I-15 right now, or at least hopefully soon.
Next year.
Next year. And yeah, so there's a lot of things planned, and that was mainly what we've been dealing with for the last 3 years.
Yeah, our ability to grow depends upon some of that with our traffic studies. So it's something we're still lobbying and campaigning for and working all the angles that we can to make sure for us and for the city that those projects continue to move forward.
And we're hoping that they'll be able to extend that, the frontage road they're putting in now between 5600 and here, extend that in. And we're actually looking to get an access off of I-15 right into the roundabout there, where America First Boulevard is. So we're hoping, we're working, we're planning, and that would allow a lot of the employees and the people in this area, because we're looking at 3,000 to 5,000 jobs over the next 20 to 30 years. So a lot of people are going to be in this area, and getting them in and out is going to be the crucial item.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioner, I can say that as a follow-up to that the city council, for the most part, is concerned about the traffic, especially as folks might come through. 1500 is a massive road now, and with the roundabouts, I mean, you can drive 2 trucks side by side, semi trucks through that thing. It's huge. But the traffic going north to 4400 is a concern, and how it might navigate to the east down 4400. So obviously all of these improvements that have been looked at and spoken of are meant to help alleviate that. It doesn't mean that 4400 won't need some kind of upgrades over the years and it won't see an impact, but we're trying to mitigate all of that. But I just wanted to let you know that the council, the concern I've heard the most is what's the impact of the neighborhood with that kind of employee base there.
Any further questions? Okay, then a motion would be in order, please.
I make a motion that we recommend positively to the city council approval of the AFCU corporate site plan campus phase 1 located at approximately 4850 south, 1500 west, as requested by AFCU and AWA Engineering, with the proviso that all city staff comments and concerns are addressed, especially those concerning the water retention. Stormwater retention.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion?
I will second.
Could I make a friendly amendment?
Of course.
Could I offer that we include that the Planning Commission be advised with each future building, the nature of the building and the impacts that it has and how it conforms with the approval that we're presenting tonight.
Sure. I guess if that's appropriate.
Okay?
I agree.
And,
I will still second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second.
I have to say, I think it's important that we know where you're at and how you're moving along and what's going on. We don't want to be left in the dark and all of a sudden be
Yep.
blindsided.
We're happy
So,
to come in every time we put a building up.
anytime you can
Thank you.
bring us more information, it'd be good.
Yep, happy to.
Okay, Michelle, would you pull the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Polson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nye,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes?
Commissioner Herman,
Yes?
Commissioner Noland.
Yes.
All right, that passes. It's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is item 3, consideration to approve proposed amendments to Planning Commission bylaws and 2025 annual meeting schedule. Mr. Cooper, once more.
I'd actually defer this to Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
So every year we have to approve the schedule, but if you guys want to change the time, that's on the schedule too. So we needed to amend the bylaws first so that we can do that without having to do it again later. So the only change in the bylaws was the time of the meeting, and then the schedule just reflects that. So we can just do it all in one motion.
Excellent.
Any questions?
And that red line was provided in the packet. I think it's
Just
easy
really
to miss.
small.
Yeah.
So that we'll be
Very
meeting
simple.
it for a work session at
30.
5:30 and Planning Commission meeting at 6.
I appreciate the simplicity of having them both at the same time. I think it makes it easier for any citizens who want to, who want to stay in the
Yep.
loop as to what's happening.
Agree.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed amendments to Planning Commission bylaws and the 2025 annual meeting schedule.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. I think we can just go by voice on this one. So all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Is that gonna go on a Tuesday? Is that gonna be on Tuesdays?
Oh,
It'll still be on
that's what you
Tuesdays,
mean.
just half an hour earlier.
Okay.
So that'll be
Still
starting in the new year.
Yes.
New Year on Tuesday. Okay, got it. Just wanna make sure.
So our next meeting is
Because now we don't
January.
have another meeting.
I can't be early. I don't know.
Our next
always
meeting
tease
in
me.
It'll be
January,
early
Right
no
on
matter
time.
what.
5:30.
5:30.
okay. Next is item F. Comments from Planning Commission and city staff. Do we have any items to address?
I do. So last meeting, you had said something about how we don't really have an Old Glory. And so I started getting some bids and asking for some money and looking into some ramp stuff, to hopefully get like a 20 by 30 flag installed at the Riverdale Park. It'll always be up there, but then we'll have something really cool for Old Glory Days too.
Thank you.
Sweet.
That was
Hoping to get it all paid for by somebody else, but
swift action.
we'll see.
She's being very modest. She jumped right on that. She bird dogged that thing. It's all pretty much installed.
I didn't know you could.
It might as well be installed.
I have some influence sometimes around here, but yeah, everybody that I've talked to is on board with it. So
Is it gonna be paid curiosity by the different companies in Riverdale, or is it just through Riverdale City?
I've requested some funding from some different grants and donors. Not any businesses yet. We'll see kind of where this pans out. If we can get half of it, and then get the other half with ramp, I'm hoping
Okay.
that would do it.
'Cause I know there's a lot of citizens I bet would just jump on the opportunity to be a part of it, some way, somehow. 'Cause I know we didn't have any problems when we did the car show, with 3 of them jumped on there immediately. And I know we just barely touched the surface, just the tip of the iceberg with volunteers that would probably jump on something like that. So just
If
FYI.
you know people that want to and you get some, I mean, we have some options of setting up like an account for even if we had to set up a nonprofit, because we haven't really taken donations before for anything like this. But yeah, we could make that happen if
Do you
there
think
was
it
enough
would be
interest.
wise to put it in the Riverdale city, if people want to contribute to it? You explain what we're doing and see what kind of response you get that way on the newsletter?
Like in the newsletter, yeah, we could do something like that a little later. It's kind of preliminary right now.
Yeah. Just FYI.
That might be something that citizens would be interested in.
Yeah.
Let's send a survey out.
Yeah, there you go.
There's some steps to that. We'll want to make sure we get Cody and Stacy involved because there are some steps that need to be taken regulatorily for us to just take like general donations.
Yeah. We would have to set up a separate fund for it,
Nonprofit.
possibly.
But again, she talked to the mayor, she talked to Steve, to Sean, basically everyone in this building, and everyone loves the idea.
Good.
Well done, Kent.
On an 80-foot pole.
Oh, yeah.
People see it from America First.
And the freeway even.
That was the idea, to put it in a location and make it as big enough that it acts as a landmark for Riverdale. And what better landmark to have than
Are they going to
the
put
American
it
flag?
near that main gazebo area?
We've kind of, Sean offered to go over there with me and look at some different spots. It's got to have some power so we can keep a light on it. It's got to be accessible for I think it's the fire department that puts it up and down. And so with all the trees where the current flag is right by the gazebo there, and there's just not enough clearance for one that size, but we're looking at some other, probably towards the west side of the park. Maybe close to the fire station.
Yeah,
There's some power there, so
that would be great. I'm excited.
it's been fun.
I'll donate.
And we talked about this, maybe more important than funding it and installing it is the program that we build around it. Not only its procurement, but its installation, and then how we treat it year after year. So there's a whole opportunity for us to make this a thing instead of just putting up a flag, but to make it a tradition of some sorts. I don't know what that looks like, but that's something that we all could maybe think about. And when it comes time to actually do the installation, it's more than just a couple of guys digging a 10-foot hole. There's some pomp and circumstance around it.
I was thinking more like the river walk with, like where they did all the exercise equipment down there and, all the different people that contributed to that river walk equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the flagpole.
And there's-
Recognize those people that contributed to that design, just like they did all the different people that contributed to the river walk equipment.
Put, benches with names on them, monuments,
Yeah, the people
anything
that,
like that.
step forward, I think should be recognized for doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Could even, have, depending on location, kind of, and I'm just throwing this out without a lot of thought behind it, but I mentioned
Did that last
back
time
in
and it
Tennessee
Started this.
the trees with, the placards of people around, something like that could be that it's remembers the founders of the city.
Or I've seen cities that have courtyards that are bricked and they have family names on the bricks.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Well, we've got something similar up that for the veterans
Yeah,
out
but
here.
that's different though, but something similar to that.
Just
yeah.
recognition of some type for those that's been involved in it.
Yeah.
It would also be a good place if we ever need to extend the Veterans Memorial. It could be moved or,
Sure.
a part 2 over there.
Yeah.
Sean told me he'd help me make sure it looks really nice if they have to do some flat work and all that around it. So
I'm excited. Good job. Thank you.
That's awesome, Michelle, that you went forward with that. Thank you.
it was a great idea.
Okay. Any other?
Make a motion to adjourn?
A second.
No?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
30 seconds.
Sorry to cut you short, Kent.
Yeah,
Your
let's
pen for a minute?
let's take a minute and complete these for Michelle.
Don't make them-
Michelle, I didn't see a place to sign on here. Is there?
It's
on the back.
On the back.
Oh, is that where we're supposed to sign?
Yeah, I did the same
It
thing.
says, where it says bye?
Oh, you're good.
It says dated this, and then you put today's date of this year, or?
Just by is what,
You already did it?
we
You
want our
already did yours?
signature?
Yeah.
Okay, it looked like that was supposed to be a city
What's the date today?
No, that's
officer that was signing there where it said bye, so I didn't
So
sign.
everybody that has to do these has a title.
Okay.
So we put, we'll put our signature right there on the bike. Oh, somebody has to give me a pen, you got a
So
pen?
There's two of them.
what title or office should we put?
Planning
Planning
commissioner.
commissioner?
Thank you, sir. Okay,
Yes.
the only thing I really need to put is your
No.
name right here, I want it, huh?
I didn't sign because I didn't want to mess it up. Sign in the wrong place.
Done that a few times.
Okay,
Till I got instructions from Michelle.
Pretty safe that way.
Yeah.